Record right now. Okay, so guys, I want to give you a good example of when we might use a cluster sample outside of necessarily this particular environment. Let's say I'm working for corporations such as like Walmart or Giant Eagle or whatever. And let's go ahead and say we're negotiating a new health insurance plan for our employees. And we want to get employee feedback on how they feel about different options for a health insurance plan. Is everybody with me so far? I'm going to use Walmart because it's nationalized. It's very big. It's a very big organization with lots and lots and lots and lots of employees. Would it make sense for Walmart to do a simple random sample of employees? So they got millions of employees. They're going to send a survey out.
No.
Tell me which one's better. Okay? Random sample. Or I randomly select like 15, 20 stores across the country and ask the entire store. You guys, isn't that a little bit more feasible? To ask the entire group. Cool? Not only that, what does that ensure if you ask the entire store?
No, more people will probably answer to it.
Certainly more will respond. You also have every level of management that's represented, right? So you'll have, most of the stores probably have similar amounts of general managers, departmental managers, cashiers, stock boys. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, by getting the entire store, you're also getting all the different levels of employees. So, but because they're selecting an entire store, that would be a cluster sample. Versus if they took all their managers, pulled them together, and said, I'm going to pick 3 of you to answer this question. Does that make sense? But it was in that case, a cluster sample would be much, much more feasible and still answer the question that you're trying to get to. Everybody good? All right. So we have simple random samples, stratified random samples, and randomized cluster samples. You guys, that is all the ones that they're going to emphasize. However, they might bring up one more, so I'm going to tell you about it very, very quickly, okay? And that is called a systematic sample. And in a systematic, what it looks like is you choose every 5th person. Or you choose every... if you're doing like samples off, like sometimes you'll do a sample of products that come off like a production line, you might say every 30 seconds or something. Do you guys get what I'm trying to say though? Okay. And where the randomization for this comes in, let's go ahead and say I wanted to pick a sample of 10 out of this group, right? I might choose I might start here and then just go every 7th seat. Oh, it's wrong. 7, 1. Do you guys get the general vibe of this? Okay. And there are times, for instance, if I wanted a random sample of students, let's say I wanted to have, 30-ish kids from Grandview, I might choose every 10th person that walks in the door, but before I start picking people to walk in, I might generate a random digit between 1 and 30 to decide, am I starting with the 30th person? Am I starting with the 15th person? So that every 15th, 30th person or whatever, that's not random, but where you're starting is where the randomization comes into play. All right, so let's just kind of look at a question that I think this FRQ was one from a few years ago. I think this one does a really good job kind of encompassing all the big ideas, a lot of the big ideas of sampling. So I'm going to let you guys read this real quick, and then we'll kind of talk through how we would answer each piece of it. And then just let's maybe talk about part A only. What are you guys thinking? Go ahead.
I feel like for 500 students who would get to the football game would be getting there like early, so they would probably have like more school spirit, I guess, and they would probably like the school more.
Okay, which makes them less likely to say something bad against the school. So you would want to just talk about, like, that means the opinions that they're going to get are going to overestimate students' opinions of the school. But yeah, I think that's spot on, okay? So what you would want to do is talk about how those 500 people are different from the 500 people who showed up, okay? So, if you don't mention how that influences their opinions on the appearance of the school, either like with it's going to be higher than or something indicating the direction of the bias, then you haven't been descriptive enough.
Did you say praise is a...
Yeah, that's, yeah. Okay. The next part is, how do we gather a random sample? It starts with assign each student a number.
And then generate 500 random numbers.
But we gotta be more specific. Assign each student a number between 1 and 70,000. Then you're gonna use a random digit generator to get
500 unique.
500. Remember that word unique has to be there. And then lastly, you have to ask the students with those numbers. Huh?
Sounds awful. 7,000.
You're not asking all 70,000. You're asking 500.
Assign, like the assigning part, you have to give.
It's not bad because you usually have an alphabetical roster. You usually have an alphabetical roster and you just go from there. Usually it's already in some sort of database, so you can just use the database to assign those. How are we feeling so far? Pretty decent? Okay. So this was a question where the average score was around a 2. And part C is what kept people from getting higher than a 2. So I'll let you guys go ahead, look at this. Start thinking through how you might answer this question. Thoughts?
The campuses are different.
Yeah, so we would want to stratify if, remember we stratify by known variables or known factors. Okay? So we would stratify by campus if there are differences in the appearances of the campuses.
Why is that again? Why?
So we stratifying by row was better because there was a difference from row 1 to row 2 to row 3 in terms of enjoyment levels. So if you're anticipating that the different groups are different, then you would want to stratify by that to make sure they have proportional representation. Right? So if the campuses look the same, it doesn't matter if you stratify by campus. It would only be like, oh, one campus is got these kinds of style of buildings and these ones are different. So we want to say, hey, maybe we like these ones better. We want to give them a voice just as much as you would want to give them a voice. Okay? All right. What questions do you guys have on the different types of samples? Okay, so here's the deal. I think we'll still be able to get through the same material on the block day, whether or not we take the quiz that day. So we're gonna try. So what I'm gonna have you guys do next is just kind of work through that review and the homework. Luke, I can easily send you the PDF and the video of the notes that I have.